Let's start by recognizing something that most men don't often consider. When a woman is in love but afraid to show it, her heart doesn't go silent. It speaks in contradictions. These contradictions are not errors in her emotional system. They're a kind of encrypted language, a defense mechanism carefully constructed to protect something deeply vulnerable. You see, love, especially when it's not yet safe to reveal, doesn't always present itself in linear, obvious expressions. In fact, the deeper the emotion, the more likely it is to come out sideways, through confusion, hesitation, or behaviors that seem to contradict how she truly feels. She might act distant right after a moment of closeness. She might pull away when things start to feel too good. She might challenge your intentions, even while craving your presence. These mixed signals aren't signs of disinterest. They're signs of internal conflict, a tug-of war between desire and fear. And unless you're attuned to that psychological complexity, you'll misread her silence as rejection, when it's actually the noise of love trapped beneath layers of self-protection. Here's the truth that often goes unspoken. Many women are raised or conditioned to believe that showing love too soon is dangerous. It makes them look desperate, it invites disappointment, and so they learn to master the art of emotional concealment. Even when the heart wants to reach out, the mind cautions restraint, especially if she's been hurt before. If she's loved openly and been met with indifference or betrayal, she's learned that emotional vulnerability is a gamble with high stakes. So what you see on the surface is not apathy, it's armor. And underneath that armor is affection trying to find a safe place to land. Psychologically, what's happening here is fascinating. There's a term in attachment theory called *anxious, avoidant conflict*. It describes a person who both longs for closeness and simultaneously fears it. That dynamic often shows up in people who have had inconsistent emotional experiences, moments where love was present, but unreliable. So they carry both the hunger for connection and the fear of abandonment. This internal contradiction doesn't go away with time. It shows up in adult relationships in subtle but powerful ways. She may look composed, even aloof, but inside, she's measuring every move, analyzing every word, scanning for signs that it's safe to feel fully. But here's the paradox. The more she feels for you, the more she may try to suppress it. Love, in its purest form, strips us of control. It exposes us, and for someone who equates exposure with danger, that's a terrifying proposition. So instead of leaning in, she might step back. Instead of confessing her emotions, she buries them under sarcasm, detachment, or even unnecessary conflict. But don't be fooled. Those reactions are not rooted in disinterest. They're rooted in fear, fear of being seen and not chosen, fear of giving her heart and getting silence in return. This is where discernment matters. A man who is emotionally intelligent, who understands the nuances of human behavior, will not respond to these contradictions with frustration or ego. He won't demand constant reassurance or mislabel her hesitation as immaturity. Instead, he'll look deeper. He'll recognize that beneath the cold response lies a burning question. Can I trust you with my truth? That question isn't asked aloud. It's asked in her distance, in her delays, in the moments where she disappears emotionally and resurfaces, hoping nothing changed. Love, when hidden behind fear, asks for patience but not passivity. It asks you to show consistency without becoming a doormat, to invite openness without forcing confession, to create emotional safety without demanding vulnerability on your terms. Because here's the secret, when she feels safe, truly safe, not judged, not rushed, not controlled, that's when the walls begin to lower. That's when her behavior starts to align with her emotions. That's when the contradictions begin to dissolve. But you have to earn that safety, not through grand gestures, but through quiet consistency, through being present when she pulls away, through understanding her moods without making them about your ego, through responding to her confusion not with anger, but with clarity. The moment she senses that her fear doesn't scare you away, that you see through the fog and stay grounded, that's when love begins to surface. Not all at once, but gradually in pieces, until it becomes undeniable. And here's what I want you to reflect on. Some of the deepest, most faltering love stories don't start with declarations. They start with misreads, with moments of hesitation, with two people dancing around feelings too big for words. But the person who's willing to read the contradictions, to listen between the lines, to stay when others would leave, that person becomes the mirror that gives the fearful heart permission to be seen. So, if you find yourself wondering whether she loves you but is scared to show it, look not at her words but at the contradictions. They're not signs of weakness, they're signs of depth. And when love is hidden, it doesn't mean it's absent. It often means it's real, and just waiting for the right moment and the right person to let it out. Let that person be you, because love, when met with patience and courage, always finds its voice. If you're paying attention, truly paying attention not just to what she says, but to what she does, you'll notice that some of the most honest expressions of love never come wrapped in obvious language. They come quietly, subtly. They come in the form of presence, of small gestures, of consistent care that asks for nothing in return. And this is where most people get it wrong. They're waiting for some grand declaration, some cinematic confession of feelings, when in reality, real love often announces itself through action, not words. This is especially true when a woman loves you, but is afraid to show it. She may be scared of being rejected, of seeming too vulnerable, or even of losing herself in emotions she doesn't fully understand yet. But fear doesn't cancel love. It only reshapes how it's expressed. And when fear enters the picture, expression becomes more restrained, more encoded. It hides behind practicality, behind friendship, behind habit. But if you look closely, her affection is always there. Whispering, waiting to be noticed. She might not tell you she misses you, but she'll make excuses to talk to you about things that don't really matter, just to hear your voice. She won't say she cares, but she'll check in on you when you're sick. Remember the little details you didn't think mattered, or quietly advocate for you in rooms you're not even in. These aren't small things. These are the fingerprints of emotional investment. They're signs that you matter to her on a level she hasn't yet found the courage to name. It's easy to miss these signals if you're only tuned into overt communication, if you're expecting her to tell you flat out, "I love you," while she's still navigating her own inner fears. You'll likely overlook the way she's already showing up. You'll miss the way she stays present during your lows, the way she encourages your growth without drawing attention to herself, the way she listens not just to your words, but to what you leave unsaid. That's love in its most refined form. Quiet, steady, often invisible to those who aren't emotionally literate. From a psychological standpoint, this kind of love expression is deeply rooted in how humans protect their inner world. When someone fears emotional exposure, they will default to action because actions feel safer. Talking about feelings demands vulnerability, clarity, and the risk of being misunderstood. But showing up for someone, that's controllable, that's manageable. A woman who fears rejection might never say how much she thinks about you, but she'll stay late to help you finish a project. She'll make sure you've eaten. She'll send you something that reminded her of you, not because she wants a thank you, but because she wants to stay connected without risking too much. These subtle signals are deeply intimate because they come from a place of internal conflict. She wants to love. She wants to be loved, but she's afraid of how much it will cost her to put it all on the table. So she sends pieces instead, pieces of herself, not to manipulate, not to play games, but to test the waters, to ask silently, do you see me? Do you value this? Am I safe to be real with you? And how you respond to those pieces will determine whether she expands or retreats. If you ignore them, if you dismiss the importance of what she's offering, she will likely pull back. Not out of pettiness, but out of emotional self-preservation. The philosopher Kierkegaard once said, "To be loved is to be understood," and in many ways that's what she's truly hoping for. Not just that you'll love her back, but that you'll see how she loves. That you'll notice the sacrifices she makes, the timing of her gestures, the way she softens only around you. Love for her isn't always in the "I love you." It's in the details, the effort, the restraint. That's where the truth lies. If you want to understand whether a woman loves you, don't just listen to what she says when the conversation turns romantic. Listen to what she does when no one's watching. Observe how she treats you when she doesn't have to. Love, when it's afraid to speak, still finds a way to act. And those actions, when repeated over time, become her version of a love letter. One written not in ink, but in consistency. This is where emotional maturity comes in. A man who is self-aware, who doesn't need constant reassurance, who understands that love is often quiet before it becomes loud, he will see her. He won't need everything explained, and he won't pressure her for more than she's ready to give. He'll appreciate the unsaid, the in-between moments, the spaces where trust is still being built, because he knows that what's unsaid isn't empty, it's often full of meaning, just waiting for the right moment to unfold. And here's the part that most people miss. Love that starts in silence often turns out to be the most enduring. Because it was cautious, it was intentional, it wasn't built on fantasy, but on presence. A woman who's scared to show her love, but still chooses to act from it, that's someone who values the emotion deeply. She's not wasting it, she's protecting it, and when she finally feels safe enough to say it out loud, it won't be a trial, it'll be a truth that's already been lived. So if you're wondering whether she loves you, stop looking only for her words. Start watching her patterns, her habits, her sacrifices. That's where love lives when it's scared, and if you can meet her there, with patience, with clarity, with respect, you just might unlock something extraordinary. Because in the end, love that is quietly proven is often the love most worth waiting for. Let's get to the root of it, because underneath all the subtle gestures, all the unspoken kindness and quiet contradictions, there's one defining force shaping it all: fear. Not the dramatic kind of fear we associate with trauma or catastrophe, but a more insidious form. A quiet, private fear that operates beneath the surface of even the strongest, most composed individuals. When a woman loves you but seems reluctant, distant, or emotionally guarded, it often isn't because she's unsure of you. It's because she's still trying to protect herself from what loving you could cost her. See, we live in a world that tells women two things simultaneously. Be open, but don't be vulnerable. Be expressive, but don't be too emotional. Show you care, but never let it seem like you care more. These contradictory expectations breed emotional restraint, not out of manipulation, but out of necessity. Many women have learned, often the hard way, that showing love too soon or too openly can lead to disappointment, abandonment, or being misunderstood. So even when their heart is ready, their defenses stay up, not because they're trying to play games, but because they've been forced to turn emotional caution into a survival skill. Now, what happens when love collides with that fear of rejection? What happens when she feels something real, but she's still haunted by the memory of giving too much in the past and receiving too little in return? She retreats, she censors herself. She may even test you, subconsciously, not to manipulate, but to see if you'll stay when things get emotionally complex. And this is something most men miss. They interpret that guardedness as lack of interest when it's actually evidence of depth. The more she feels, the more she fears what she could lose if she miscalculates your intentions. From a psychological perspective, this is deeply tied to the human need for belonging. According to Maslow, love and belonging are foundational needs, yet they're fragile because to be loved, you must first be seen, and to be seen, you must be vulnerable. And for many women, vulnerability has come at a price, so they build masks not to deceive you, but to protect what's real underneath. She might act indifferent, but deep down she's watching how you respond to her distance. Will you chase? Will you respect her boundaries? Or will you walk away, confirming her worst fear? That love always disappears when it becomes too honest. She doesn't want to fall into that cycle again. So instead of telling you how she feels, she watches you. Not just in the good moments, but in the moments when things aren't easy. She watches how you handle silence, how you respond to emotional ambiguity, how you react when she's not fully available, and whether you realize it or not, this becomes the test, not of your worth, but of your emotional safety. Because to a woman who's been emotionally bruised, safety isn't a luxury, it's a prerequisite for love. This is where your emotional intelligence matters more than anything. If you can recognize that fear of rejection isn't weakness, but a product of emotional depth and history, then you'll stop taking her behavior personally. You'll begin to understand that when she hesitates, it's not because she's unsure about you. It's because she's still trying to discern whether you're different from the ones who came before. Can you hold space for her complexity? Can you be consistent even when she's distant? That's what she's looking for. Not perfection, but emotional steadiness. There's also a philosophical aspect to this. Love, by its very nature, involves risk. The risk of being misunderstood. The risk of giving and not receiving. The risk of exposure. So anyone who's loved before and been burned will naturally hesitate before walking into the fire again. But here's the thing, she's still there, she's still trying, she hasn't walked away. That means there's still hope, still emotional investment, even if it's wrapped in caution. What she needs is not grand gestures, but quiet understanding. She doesn't need you to break down her walls. She needs you to be patient enough for her to lower them on her own. The minute she feels you don't need her to perform love in a particular way, that she can show up with her fear, her hesitation, and still be accepted, that's the minute her defenses begin to dissolve. Because she's not looking for someone to fix her, she's looking for someone who can love her even in her guardedness. So how do you move forward? You listen, you watch, you respond, not react. You show her that emotional maturity isn't just about how much you feel, but about how well you can hold space for what she's feeling, even when she can't fully articulate it. And most importantly, you show her through your actions that her fear of rejection is safe with you, that you won't use her vulnerability against her, that you won't abandon her once she opens up. Because here's the truth, when a woman loves you but is scared to show it, she's not looking for a hero. She's looking for refuge, and if you can be that for her, if you can be the calm in her emotional storm, then eventually she won't just love you silently. She'll love you freely, so the next time she pulls away, instead of asking what's wrong with her, ask what does she need to feel safe with me. That single shift in perspective might change everything. Because sometimes the most powerful love stories don't begin with loud proclamations. They begin with silence, with patience, with presence and the courage to love someone exactly where they are, fear and all.